all our dear participants, guests, and everyone who has joined us today. We're happy to see you on a new episode of the UMIAP Startup Experience program, which we launched in collaboration with the Ministry of Digital Transformation, the Ukrainian Startup Foundation, and R&D Center WINSTARS.AI. This program is aimed for startups to help them learn more about entrepreneurship in various aspects and how to avoid mistakes in the early stage of their journey. And today our guest is Igor Gnatovsky, co-founder and CEO of LetyShops. Good afternoon.
Hello, hello. Greetings, everyone. If I may, Sasha, I also know it's your birthday today.
Oh, yes, it's my birthday today.
Congratulations. May all your dreams come true.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to receive your congratulations and that you remember when my birthday is. Thank you to everyone for these good wishes. I see the participants are also sending their messages. Thank you all. Well, today's episode is a bit special for me, and I think our conversation is going to be great. Our interview today is divided into several parts. First, we have some prepared questions. They are similar for our all speakers, and we will start by asking them to Ihor. Meanwhile, startups can prepare any questions that come to mind and write them in the chat. So I think we can get started. The first question is a common one we ask everyone, and it goes like this. How did the idea of creating your business came about? Where did you start, and how did the story begin?
We have a somewhat unique case because it turned out we reinvented the cashback model. How did it happen? Currently, our product allows users to receive cashback on every online purchase across thousands of our partners in various regions around the world. Before LetyShops, we were a team, a web studio that created websites to order. For some reason, we always wanted our own product to control the experience, achieve more, and so on. That product became an online storefront with products from various merchants. Back then, we learned to drive SEO traffic. People would see products, choose them, click on them, and get redirected to the merchant's site to make a purchase. We earned money from this advertising through the CPA model. And so we grew to 5,000 a month in revenue on that model, but then we stalled and couldn't scale it further. The main reason was that all these customers were only using us once. We were not really creating much value for them. They'd come, see a product, leave, and forget about us. We started thinking about how we could build relationships with these customers so they'd come back. We brainstormed various ideas, maybe implementing filters, maybe building our brand. One idea was simply to share our commission. Initially, there was some resistance to this, like, why would people care about these small amounts, 2 or 3%? But ultimately, we took a leap of faith. We started implementing it, and towards the end, once we had created the product, we found out that there was already a cashback model that originated in the US in 1999 and in the UK around 2008.
Wow, this already exists.
So, in fact, we had reinvented an existing model.
Wow, that's amazing. As they say, all genius ideas are simple. So, how did you manage to scale this idea, and how many people were on your team at that time?
Yes, for a long time we stayed at 5,000 level. It didn't immediately take off. Some users who came through CEO traffic started using the cashback, but most of them still continued to be one-time buyers just as before. So our initial audience was small. To start scaling, we began experimenting with the other advertising channels, not just SEO. We tried PPC, some targeted ads, we tried a lot of things. What worked best for us was influencer marketing because with the new model involving money, people need to believe that we'll actually give cash back after purchase, that it's not a scam. When an influencer talks about it, they essentially share their trust. They're saying, believe me, there is a service that gives you money back. We were among the first advertisers for many influencers paying them, which was about 10 years ago. Influencer marketing was essentially our growth driver, but we didn't have money for it. We had angel investments, initially $5,000, then another 15,000 from a Ukrainian based in the US. For about a year, we were searching for investments with a proven model and a growth strategy. But we needed capital to fuel marketing. We had the product, it was retailing, and we had verified it on a small scale. But to scale it up, we needed capital.
Mm-hmm. And how did you manage to make it work?
It was a very difficult period. At the time, I had a severe stutter, which made pitching very challenging. I didn't know much about pitching or presentations back then. I just did the best I could, like with most things in our company. But then someone from the CPA market noticed us. He had a better understanding of the market than we did and knew various advertising methods. He was aware of cashback and its potential, as there are huge multi-billion-dollar companies around this model in the US. He gave us seed funding of $150,000, which enabled rapid growth. Since the model was ready, it just needed a financial boost, and our economics worked well from there. We reinvested our profits, and to this day, we continue to reinvest them into growth. That's how we did
Mm-hmm.
it.
That's amazing, really. How long did it take from being not very profitable to reaching that growth stage? How much time passed approximately?
We received the investment about a year and a half after LetyShops formally launched, but it took us about 6 to 9 months to launch LetyShops itself. And before that, we had the previous product. So if you count from the initial idea to create our own product to the moment we received investment and felt confident about moving forward, It probably took about 2.5 years. Those were very tough years.
Yes, of course. I would say those are the pivotal moments. They're the hardest, both financially and emotionally. You go through crisis, then you grow, and it's all very spontaneous. So it's clear that it can be as smooth and easy as we like. Yes. We're also interested in knowing how things progressed after you received the investments, once you had the opportunity to spend on marketing. Did everything launch quickly?
After receiving the investment, things moved very fast. We could barely measure growth by year because it was in the tens of thousands of percent. It developed extremely intensively. At the same time, we also grew significantly internally. We went into extreme hiring mode, expanding the team. By the way, I didn't answer your previous question. Before the investment, we had a team of around 10 people, a small company. But within a year and a half, we grew to 100 people, which was, of course, quite challenging, as you can imagine.
Significant growth. Cool.
Yes, our budgets grew in parallel as well, and we started launching more and more advertising campaigns, working with bigger bloggers. And just to clarify, no one taught us this. We were doing everything intuitively, through trial and error, observing feedback, and then taking the next steps.
Yes, that's when you were learning everything all together.
Exactly. My colleagues, co founders, and others who've been with the company for 10 years now. I think, just like me, we all learned everything here, in that initial 10-person team. I don't think anyone had prior professional experience that could be called directly relevant, at least not in our field. We all gained this knowledge at LetyShops, going through this experience, dealing with crises, growths, mistakes, and so on.
Learning by doing is best way, and it's a testament to how well everything turned out.
Exactly, that's how it is.
I suggest we move directly to the second stage of our interview as we have many questions from startups and they are curious, they are already writing in. So the second stage is question from the startups. You can write and send us your question in the chat and we will ask Igor. The first question in our second round is from Danilo. He asks, tell us about saying goodbye to the Russian market. How challenging was it, and what was the process like? We all know that for many companies, this is a stressful time and often leads to a downtown inactivity. How did it go for you?
I'll add a bit of backstory here on what it meant for us to leave the Moscow market. Our initial market was Russia, and soon after we expanded to Ukraine. Then, around 2017-18, even though we had ambitions from day one, we began our expansion into the West without even having an English version or fully understanding how we should structure it. We ventured into different regions worldwide. Doing some analysis based on the criteria we understood, some markets like the US and South America didn't quite take off for us, but European markets generally gained traction. We now hold leading positions in several European countries. So, by the time the war started, Russia made up around 43% of our business. And yeah, it still hurts a lot. When we look at our metrics, it's painful. But from an internal decision making perspective, it was not painful. Everything is relative. Given what was happening around us, it felt like losing a part of the business. I'm not sure how it was for other businesses, but that's how it was for us.
And currently, in approximately how many countries are you operating?
Where do we operate at all? In dozens, but we focus on around 10 markets, mostly European markets like Ukraine, Poland, Spain, and Italy. These are our more focused markets where we hold strong positions. Mexico is also a major and growing market for us. Returning to Europe, there is a Germany, France, which is smaller, and a bit in Portugal and Brazil. We also have some operations in India. These markets have a smaller share, but we continue to operate there, waiting for the right moment. In these smaller markets, we maintain a certain level of operations. We don't close them, as we anticipate a time when we will have more capital and product innovations for a big launch. Just before the war, we had been fundraising for about 6 months with plans to enter many more markets, including the ones I mentioned and additional ones. But we were only days away from closing the round when everything changed.
Yes, I understand. Right now, it's difficult for everyone. After the full scale invasion began, most companies had to radically change their plans, at least initially. Now I see a trend where many are starting to revive their development plans or bring back pre-war project, which is great. It's wonderful that Ukrainian business are reactivating, implementing their plans despite the challenging conditions and circumstances. Of course, it's tough to work with the workforce and economic crisis, but in any case, it's essential to keep going, and it's great that you're doing just that. It's very impressive. We also heard about your planning to launch a new product.
Yes, in our case, it's more than just continuing. Before the war, when we were about to close a significant investment round, an 8 figure amount that would have helped us scale further and attract future rounds, our ambitions were high. But after the war started, we realized that for a few months we weren't focused on business at all. Our priorities were elsewhere, like many others. However, in the summer, we sat down with the leadership team. We began thinking about how to move forward without capital, as investors had asked if we could relocate, but we couldn't. We were left without capital and had lost part of our business in Russia, among other challenges. At the same time, we realized our ambition had grown. The ideas we had before to simply scale the existing product, which itself is challenging, now felt limited. This product could have become a $1 billion company at best. That's a huge ambition, at least for us. But we understood our risk tolerance had increased. Compared to the risks surrounding us, like the real threat of life itself, the fear of failure or losing reputation had diminished. So we took a big leap, for us at least. We started investing everything that LetyShops generated into a new product. It's also in the cashback niche, but with a concept that goes much further. It has the potential, as we say it, to transform the shopping experience entirely by adding social interaction and fun, making it more engaging, a collective experience where friends help each other choose products. We are adding mechanisms for group purchases and enhancing cashback significantly compared to what LetyShops currently offers.
That's cool.
We've been investing in this for a year now, and we've hired around 40 people for the R&D team over the past 12 months. It is still somewhat abstract, but there is already a closed alpha version with about 1,000 users.
So it's really moving toward entertainment, creating more interaction between people with clients and also among the clients themselves.
Yes, essentially. The key here is probably socialization in shopping. Right now, people choose products based on product specifications. First, they might Google or open an online store to read reviews, watch videos, and so on. But in reality, people are often more interested in asking a friend for recommendations or seeing what their friends or even influencers are buying. This often influences us even more than product features. This is the first insight we want to use. The second is to imagine shopping like a trip to the mall with friends. It's less about shopping itself and more about spending time together. Shopping becomes the excuse.
That's great.
That's
I like
roughly
it.
the vision. Again, it's still somewhat abstract, but we already have a set of features we've started implementing, like group purchases and so on.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing how things are progressing. It's interesting to hear. Many of our participants probably heard somewhere that a new project was starting, so it's exciting to learn more. We're also curious to know how you find services to work with for cashback operations and how you organize partnerships. Is it challenging?
Are you asking how we find the online stores we
Yes,
partner
the
with?
stores, exactly.
Well, if you look a bit deeper into this market, there are these CPA, cost per action players. They are companies with legal relationships. meaning contracts with merchants or online stores. We do a single integration with these CPA players, meaning with one of these companies, and through them we get access to around 100 stores in one go. We have about 20 to 30 such CPA players. We also have maybe 10 to 15 stores with which we've integrated directly. This process can be very difficult. For example, integrating with Amazon in India. Such integration can take up to 6 months due to various legal issues. To summarize, for most online stores, it's easy to partner up. It's usually a single integration. Then through an admin panel they approve us, signaling they are ready to receive leads and traffic from us. But if we are talking about attracting large online stores, that's a separate, more challenging negotiation process and so on.
Got it. Our next question from the participant is are you currently using artificial intelligence in your work? AI is extremely popular now, and nearly every other company use it in some capacity. Do you use it? And if not, do you plan to?
To use it systematically, when we were launching the new product, it was built on a completely new tech stack. This includes some small local technological innovations, for example, order tracking. I'll say something shocking. In LetyShops, many orders, about 10 to 20%, simply are not tracked. This is an issue we have due to integration quality. Of course, this affects customers. They are promised a service and then they don't receive it. So, we are moving towards a new approach that includes machine learning as a significant component. We are also going to use recommendation models for products and dynamic cashback component. In summary, we are not using AI in daily operations right now. However, what we are developing is meant to incorporate AI, like advanced research features in our product. We envision a type of research function similar to Google, a V2 where you simply express your request and it gives you the result. We are not there yet, but when we add it, we'll design for that kind of intelligent search.
Got it. Got it. So AI is both in current use and in your plans, a process is in place. That's interesting. I believe it's a powerful tool that everyone should use, even if it's not integrated into the product itself. AI can simplify life significantly for content managers, marketers, for writing texts, generating images, videos, and more. It eases the routine, streamlines, and accelerates processes. So it's great that you're also adapting it within your company. Let's move on. We have an interesting question. How do you how do you see the future development of cashback services overall?
With our vision, which includes a strong focus on socialization, gamification, and collective fun, we see this becoming a significant part of shopping overall in 5-7 years. especially in services that help people save money. There is a great example in the US, a company called Fetch Rewards, which doesn't give cash back at cash but as points. They gamify the whole process and then let people turn these points into gift cards as a reward for themselves. They are probably the most successful player in this cashback loyalty program space. I had the chance to talk with their CEO. He firmly believes that emotions are more interesting to people than merely saving money. This actually confirmed our vision too. So, my answer is that shopping will generally transform in this direction.
Yes, that will definitely be a trend. Okay, great. I personally haven't delved deeply into this topic, so it's interesting to hear. Everything is evolving so fast now that it's hard to even plan, let alone predict how things will change in the future. For instance, our participants are asking, what are the differences in shopping trends in Ukraine compared to abroad? Every country has its own trends. How do you identify them?
In terms of shopping trends, I think countries are actually more similar than they are different. For example, when it comes to market monopolization, almost every country has its own large local player. In the US, it's Amazon, in Poland, it's Allegro, in Ukraine, it's Rosetka. So, in that sense, they are very similar. As for logistics, I don't have all the details, but it seems that Ukraine might even be ahead in some areas, although Poland also has well developed logistics. There, it's common to have home delivery as a standard, and they leave packages in secure boxes. I've heard that's common practice. Attitudes towards saving money are also quite similar across markets, which is reflected in the presence of cashback services and other players across different regions. So, I'd say the e commerce market is quite similar in that respect. One noticeable difference, though, is the lack of a widespread post payment option in some countries. For them, it's normal to pay upfront and then, if needed, to go through a return process. Ukrainians, on the other hand, are used to paying upon receiving their order. In many places abroad, that option doesn't exist or is much less common.
Yes, it's actually great that we have this option here because sometimes you're not entirely sure about your purchase, especially if it's a spontaneous buy. You might change your mind and want to return it. So it's a great feature, but the fact that it's not common in other countries could be drawback for them. Or perhaps it's an advantage, since most people might be too lazy to go through the return process and just keep it the item, so okay, it stays.
Maybe this is an opportunity for Nova Posta. I'm not sure what their strategy is or what they are banking on to succeed in Europe, but maybe this is one of their bets.
Could be.
We had this assumption that markets are more similar than different when we started our expansion. We knew nothing about Poland, Spain, Italy, or the US. It was a leap of faith. We didn't even speak English, but we went for it and it worked. This doesn't mean all aspects of shopping are identical, but specifically for our product, it grew successfully. Retention and user behavior metrics are very similar.
Okay, so what would you advise our startups when they starting to enter international markets? What should they focus on based on LetyShops experience?
Well, here is how we thought about it, and I believe this tactic worked for us. When we were considering our next country, having already established in Russia and Ukraine, we thought, let's go to countries where cashback services already exist. Their presence suggests some more awareness and a predisposition among people to use cashback. But we wanted to avoid markets with a dominant player that had already become a monopoly, as competing against an established brand would be challenging. We also evaluated market size, prioritizing larger markets with these favorable parameters. These markets, based on our evaluation, ended up performing well. Where we experimented with just entering, like in the US, without a specific strategy. It didn't work because there was already a leader in the US and the UK. Competing in such markets with a similar product is tough. However, if a startup has a unique advantage, meaning a product with a significant edge over the competition, I would advise entering the largest market they can afford. This depends on their own context. If they have capital and the ability to start with the USA as the biggest e commerce market, they should try there first.
Yes, yes. It can be really challenging to know in which country you succeed. When you plan, you can estimate certain metrics and engagement, but you can never predict whether, so to speak, your product will take off. It might succeed and gain interest, or something might go wrong and have the opposite effect. So sometimes entrepreneurs tell us everything went according to plan because they spent a lot of time to planning, while others shared they tried and it happened to work out. So yes, planning is important, but sometimes it's wrong taking a risk and just trying. You never know, it might work.
I'd like to add to that because I honestly believe that LetyShops came about thanks to luck. It wasn't some grand strategy or meticulously planned. It was this simple idea I've already mentioned it of let's just share the money and people will stick with us. It was just a leap of faith with no clear explanation. There is hardly any way to research this or find a theoretical foundation. So I agree that it's essential to sometimes take those leaps of faith. Of course, they should be as thorough as possible based on the information available in each context. But don't get caught up in maxing out competitor analysis and so on. Often a startup doesn't have the
Yes, I
time for
agree.
that.
And perhaps they don't have enough resources, I say. Usually, startups lack easy team members or funds. There is always a resource shortage. I know that most startups that began their journey only planned part of it, and their success was often due to chance. It could be a great idea that worked, a timely investment, or simply that the market liked the idea and it went viral. In most cases, things happen spontaneously and you can't fully predict when the idea will start to grow. We are also interested to know our startups would love to hear your advice on how to secure investments and attract funds from partners. Was there anything in particular that helped you back then?
Well, it really depends on the stage. Our round, which didn't end up happening, was more of a late stage Series A, Series B for us. By then, you need a full fledged business model, significant scale, and the ability to argue convincingly that profitability is achievable within a reasonably short time frame and that there is still growth potential ahead. Maybe those aren't all the criteria, but the main takeaway is that this stage requires approaching things as a more mature business, at least compared to the early stages. It's still considered an early stage, but it's far later than the initial startup phase. At the early stage, I think we managed to secure investments because we had a product ready to scale, but we just didn't have the capital. When thinking about a seed round, I know of seed rounds reaching 40 million, which can be fine depending on the product you are building. If it has very complex elements, that's a different story. I'm not sure I can offer much advice in that case. But if it is more of a consumer product and you need to prove that you can change behavior, create value, and capture value, it will likely be much easier if you can find your own money or funds from friends. It might be challenging, but it's often essential to build at least a basic MVP. In fact, having not just an MVP but functioning product with retention, showing product market fit through retention or other metrics, will make it much easier to raise capital because you have a solid argument.
Exactly. It's always easier when you already have some metrics. And of course, when you approach investors, you need to be fully prepared. Are there any particular funds or entrepreneurs who are especially focused on supporting startups? Any advice on whom to approach in that case?
Among Ukrainian funds,
Ukrainian or international, I think our startups are considering different options just to have something interesting in mind if they don't know.
well, there are simply so many. There are countless venture funds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands. My advice would be to seek not just money but also expertise. If you are developing an ad tech product, for example, it's probably ideal to find an investor who can provide not only funding but also support with hiring an executive in the education sector, assist with market research, and generally offer guidance. There is a huge number of venture funds that invest in ad tech, so I can't give specific recommendations as the options are vast.
That's okay. The important point here is that when looking for investor, you should focus not only the funds they can provide. You should try to gain experience, expertise, advice, or mentorship from them. Use them to the fullest extent, not only in terms of finances. This is what Igor wanted to convey to us. I agree, and it's absolutely true. I think that most companies that received investments also gained some benefits from their relationship with investors. At minimum, it's networking, connections, expanded communication, and possibly clients. The value is much more than just finances. Okay, let's continue with a few more questions and then move on to our final round. Here is a question. Let's talk about marketing. How do you find clients? How challenging was it to attract your first clients and what strategies do you use?
Initially, it was SEO, a research channel with big limitations. After that, we experimented. Ultimately, we found that influencer marketing worked well for us and remains a leading part of our marketing strategy. In 2016, influencer marketing was the only or almost the only approach, and it drove all our growth. Currently, influencer marketing is still the primary channel, probably accounting for over 50%, but we diversify it, not to dilute it, but to maximize growth, using all available effective tools. Influencer marketing has its limitations. The more you invest, the higher your customer acquisition cost. So, we maximize influencer marketing and supplement it with PPC and win win. That's our term. It's a referral model we've built on a win win approach. Referral models work well for us, and they tend to work well for consumer products in general. It's worth trying for any customer facing product. In B2B, it's not as straightforward, but in B2C,
And how
it's definitely
difficult was
something
it
to
to
try.
start collaborating with influencers? Did you start with barter terms or did you offer incentives right away to interest them in participating in your campaigns?
We never really had barter arrangements. Instead, we focused on conveying the value of the collaboration to them. With some of the bigger influencers, we even met in person to build relationships.
Yes, that's okay. I understand that as you progress, it might become easier to find people willing to promote your product. But as you mentioned, the cost of engaging influencers increase. That's a fact. We have a question similar to the last one. People are asking about CEO. How challenging was it to promote everything for search? And if possible, could you share how much was spent in the early months on CEO optimization? We know it's a costly and complex endeavor.
You have to understand the context. LetyShops operates based on stores, whereas our previous product worked with products. This created much more content and allowed for broader SEO optimization. When I mention SEO traffic, I'm referring to our previous product. As for now, challenging it was As for how challenging it was, honestly, I can't recall exactly. We knew very little at the start, but we dove in, learned a bit, and started implementing things. We did it on a very tight budget. I think we were spending only hundreds of dollars, not thousands per month. Most of it was internal optimization, which was essentially free because we handled it ourselves. Back then, link building was effective, and we chose cheaper options whenever possible. I'm not sure how things work now since I'm not personally involved in SEO anymore.
We have a few final questions. Let's talk about hiring. How difficult is it to hire right now, and what challenges are you facing in the labor market?
The main challenge is that hiring is difficult.
Yes, it's our main trouble.
I'm not sure, but maybe we are a bit unique in our hiring approach because we have quite high standards. We have about 5 stages in our interview process, including an interview with me, focused on cultural fit. Even at this scale, we still do it. If we are around 200 employees now, it's with this rigorous hiring process. Recently, we've been primarily focusing on engineers, product managers, and designers. Our R&D team has been very active over the past 12 months. It's extremely difficult to find product oriented engineers, business oriented product managers, designers, and engineers who have a deep understanding of the business impact of their work. Ideally, a product engineer understands how their work affects business metrics or the overall business vision, collaborates seamlessly with product managers and designers, and speaks the same language in terms of goals and purpose. So, based on these criteria, it's quite challenging to find people right now.
That's true. We know that currently there is a bit of a downturn in the labor market, and also people are looking for jobs. It's still not enough. Companies in Ukraine are finding it challenging to find specialists, and sometimes it even reaches the point where they need to search for Ukrainians abroad. Many people have left, so it's not always easy. I suggest we move to the next and final stage of our interview. It's called rapid fire questions, where I'll ask brief questions and you should give short answers. If something catches our interest, we might dive a bit deeper into it. Great, okay. The first question is there a thought leader who inspires you?
It's important to note that I rarely use social media, so I can't think of anyone specific like that. I'm greatly inspired by entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, those who are in the process, those who are fighting through challenges, who have a vision and ambition, those who are fighting through challenges, going through similar journeys. I find their stories very interesting.
Okay, let's continue. The next question is less work related, it's about relaxation. What's the best way for you to relax? Is it active or passive rest?
If possible, a
A
mix.
mix is fine. Cool. If it's active rest, is it more about sports or travel? What specifically?
The first things that come to mind are snowboarding, pit biking, and waveboarding, so
Adrenaline
activities.
filled activities. Cool. Moving on to a new question. If you could choose a superpower for work, what would you choose? Controlling time or reading minds?
I can't pick both. I'd probably choose reading minds, specifically reading clients' minds. For work, reading clients' minds would be invaluable, since most mistakes made in companies come from misunderstanding what the client truly wants.
Exactly. That would lead to much greater success. Next question. Is there a book that changed your life? If there is one, perhaps a few.
I read very few books, hardly any have changed me, but one that left a certain impression is From Good to Great. This book, especially during the time we were in the process of founding LetyShops, framed my thoughts on a leadership, how to think and about vision. It contributed to where we went next.
Cool, thank you for your answer. Just a few more questions. The next one is this. When it comes to study, what would you choose? Formal education or informal education?
Informal. I consider myself someone who has self taught throughout my journey. I would generally choose learning by doing, but adding theoretical components in the areas where it is currently a deficit. So that's my path, and I think it's somewhat optimal.
I agree. We've talked about this, but let's summarize briefly. What is the main trend in your field?
Well, okay, I probably mentioned the trend I would like to create, right?
Let's consider it the main one.
And this includes the specialization of fan gamification. I think it is relevant both in shopping and looking at Monobank, it is relevant in the banking sector. Looking at Duolingo, I recently saw their statement that their strategy is not about language learning. Their strategy is about play. If you know, they have heavily gamified their learning process. But I think the main trend right now, de facto, is in another area, which is quite a monopolization and vertical integration, meaning that players are gathering different segments into one. Chinese manufacturers are penetrating all markets, which I consider effective in terms of price and quality. At least in terms of price and quality, I don't know.
Not always. Okay, continue. The next question. What is the number one value for your company?
Number one, that's difficult. I can't name just one. We are currently in the process of formalizing our culture, and it has been a long process. If I can, I'd like to mention a few. I believe that LetyShops is about focus. At its core, we understand that we look very little at our competitors. We focus more on many other things, meaning we concentrate on the essence. It's about partnership. We highly value relationships. We value trust, respect, and this can generally be called partnership. It's about our desire to be bolder, our drive for courage, taking steps in that direction, being more decisive, and taking more risks. It seems that this has helped us along our path, and I believe it will continue to help us. There are many other criteria for us. It's fairness. We are very concerned about fairness. Again, it's an abstraction, but it's somehow important to us.
Cool.
It
Then
has
let's
been
move
and
on to the
continues to
next
be from the
question.
very
What
beginning.
advice would you give yourself at the beginning of your career?
Personally, I made mistakes, especially when scaling the team, by not paying attention to cultural fit. That's the advice I would give myself. Be attentive and embrace it.
Got it. And the next question. What habit would you recommend every entrepreneur to develop? This could be a daily habit or something more global.
I would advise not to be afraid to dream and then take steps toward the dream. The dream can vary for everyone. For some, it's a greater financial motivation. For others, it is an internal ambition for achievement. And for some, it's simply the desire to change the world. All those dreams that you may not even be able to imagine how to achieve, but it's worth dreaming about. Take steps while sometimes forgetting about fear.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. And the key question of this round, your advice to startups in one word or one sentence? Because I won't force you into just one word.
Be decisive.
Cool. That connects well with your previous answer. It all leads to the fact that decisiveness is key to achieving new accomplishments. Awesome. Thank you for your response and thank you for the interview. It was great and interesting to chat. We managed to touch on quite a few different topics. I'm sure our startup participants found it very interesting to hear from you about how everything happened, the challenges you faced, and how you overcame that. It's great that our entrepreneurs share their experiences and are open to doing so. This significantly helps the younger generation and those entrepreneurs just starting their journeys. Also, thank you to the participants for joining us today and for leaving their questions in the chat. We invite you to join the next episode of our Yumi Up Startup Experience project. There is a lot more exciting content waiting for you. Don't forget to like, comment, and invite your friends to join our program. We are happy to see you all. Have a great day and see you next time.
Thank you very much, Sash. Thank you to everyone who was
Well,
with us.
everyone, have a great day. Goodbye.